you're older before your time. And when you don't even know what the cause is, like you don't realize how much mental emotional stress you're under. You have no purpose in life, the psycho-spiritual. You have aches and pains from something previous, could have been 20 years ago. You're still kind of.
Today we have a fabulous guest on the show, Reed Davis. Reed is a board-certified holistic health practitioner and certified nutritional therapist. He is the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition and the FDN Certification Course. Reed is also one of the authors of the GAP series, which highlights the importance of integrative medicine in chronic disease recovery. Reed, welcome to the Functional Nurse Practitioner podcast.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Tara.
Well, we're excited to get to know you, Reed, and I would love for you to share a little bit about you and like who is Reed Davis and why should we listen to you?
Well, thanks. I know we're all a bunch of do-gooders and want to help people, and so I feel very comfortable sharing the amazing experience I've got to have. Just start with the beginning. It was in environmental law and conservation, saving the whole planet at one time back in the 90s. And it was a passion and love and very satisfactory. But I started to worry more about people than the flora and fauna. Again, I was saving the air, birds, water, trees, bees, and all that. And my attention just went towards people. I was in good shape and healthy, Tara, but I didn't want anything sneaking up on me. I was in my mid to late 40s back then, 25 years ago. I'm over 70 now.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, thanks. I just really believe in taking care of oneself. So I switched jobs. I went to work in this clinic. It was a wellness center that was mostly alternative medicine kind of thing. And at the turn of the century, that was still kind of taboo. It was, you know, not really accepted. I have witnessed the evolution of that alternative into what then became kind of complementary as we did really good work and it was accepted as useful. And then integrative, where you should actually have both working together, the standard and the alternative, so to speak. And then finally, functional medicine came around. And I want to tell you, my opinion is that it still hasn't evolved far enough. It's got a ways to go. And what I now teach, because I spent 10 years in that clinic, spent 10 years there, and my job was to run laboratory work. So I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people, and I made some observations. I had great mentorship. The lab guys were amazing. These were sometimes lab rats who weren't practicing. They just wanted to know what data can we get out of saliva and urine and stool and blood, of course. So they were real nerdy, geeky, and I have that part of me. And but at the same time, I wanted to help people. So again, my job was to run the labs in the office. We had chiropractic, acupuncture, we had a DO, we had a bunch of other people around doing modalities. And here's something I noticed as the background, and I won't take much longer with the background, but when I noticed right away, and remember, I had no medical training. I had a lot to learn, but I had nothing to unlearn. That's what I like to say now. And so everybody coming in, I noticed had seen 6 or 8 or 10 practitioners already, and they weren't well yet. And the first thing I thought of, being a motorcycle rider and a very independent thinking person, when I'm out, I'm going, what's wrong with these people? Like, what do you mean you've been to 10 people and you're not better yet? That's a ripoff. I would call that a ripoff. And so then I sorted it out. It wasn't exactly a ripoff. These people just had their ladder of health building up against the wrong wall. They were pursuing medical for what wasn't a medical problem. So I became kind of an expert at subclinical observations, and I ran all these labs, thousands in it, for 10 years. Before I taught a single class, I was just teaching individual patients in the office. Look, here's these labs. There's a phrase to be coined for sure. Here's the healing opportunities. Not a
Mm.
diagnosis, a medical diagnosis. Here's your label and here's your treatment, but just here's what's really wrong. And then I had to develop a system of how to rebuild that health. What they would do at home was more important than what they would do in the office. So not only was I able to figure out a pattern of underlying healing opportunities, we call it, it's kind of well known, the hidden underlying stressors and conditions. HIDDEN stands for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous
Yes.
system balance, of course. So that hidden acronym, plus oxidative stress, other things, but that hidden acronym is the foundation of our investigation first. So everyone that comes in started running these labs, and I hadn't sorted it out yet, but I just kept running labs and finding really interesting things that had been overlooked or even poo-pooed by standard medicine. And then I noticed people were coming in for their chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, and even nutritional counseling. And I said, look, what you do at home is so much more important than what you do in the office. How are you eating, and what time do you go to bed, and how much exercise, and what kind of understanding of stress do you have, and I became an expert on stress, all the different types, whether it be mental, emotional, which is what people think of. Oh, I hate my job. I hate my kids, whatever. I got financial problems, and so sorting out that stress, and then supplements. Although I don't sell them my own brand or anything, I know a lot about them. So that became the dress for health success: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So we look at HIDDEN. We sort out that's multiple labs, multiple healing opportunities, a whole constellation. And then, because we don't want to follow the medical model of diagnose and treat, it's like, well, how do we help this person to self-treat everything all at once? So our protocol of DRESS, individualized, helped out by the lab work, the data, individualized that way, and obviously getting to know people, became the foundation of FDN, and we now call functional diagnostic nutrition. And when I taught my first class after 10 years, I had to call it something, and that's what popped out of my mouth. And now I'm kind of stuck with it. But FDN it's functional diagnostic nutrition. That's what I called it. But it's foundational, data-driven nurturing. And it's also, actually, I think of functional diagnostic nursing, because nurses are the best nurturers. And so we've found quite a niche among nursing profession, because they're kind of tired of just seeing people on their treatment protocol and not getting better.
Yes.
Back to my original observation, and it was kind of horrible at the time, and I think a lot of it still is. People don't know. They don't have the data. They're not given test results by the physicians. And oh, by the way, many of these people, and I'll finish with this, many of these people coming in the office, wonderful people, mostly women, again, they've been told nothing's wrong with you in so many cases. Well, your blood work looks normal. That's why I mentioned it's the subclinical observations we can make. You're not a case yet. You're not bad enough. So people would go away and do what? You've been told you feel like crap. You get told by your physician nothing's wrong with you. I would add yet.
Yes.
And so there's something wrong. So those poor people were going to every kind of Tom, Dick, and Harry and a bunch of other worse ripoffs. And getting some care. I mean, there's always good people out there willing to help, but no one had really put a whole system together at that time. And so I'm kind of known for that.
Well, your story is very interesting. It definitely resonates with me for lots of different reasons. But first of all, wow, you are definitely doing something right for your health. I never would have guessed your age. I'm notoriously terrible at guessing ages anyway, but you're
And you
definitely
just
doing
need new
something right.
glasses. Well, thanks. I don't feel my age at all. Matter of fact, I wake up some days and just so thankful and blessed to go. It just doesn't feel like 70 sounded 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 70 sounded old. Now I'm like, well, hey, I'm
Now
just
it's
kind of getting
young.
started on some things.
Yes. And when somebody has that kind of passion for what they do, and friends, listeners, viewers out there, you should definitely grab a notebook and a pen and bookmark this episode for later, because we're going to get into some really juicy topics. You already kind of touched on some things that I definitely want to talk about, expand
Okay.
on, like the go to the doctor's office and your tests are normal. There's nothing wrong with you, or even worse, being told it's all in your head,
Oh
which
my
is
God. Yeah.
what I was told. I was told that when when I thought I had cancer, and then they removed my thyroid, and I had this
Oh boy.
specialist tell me it was all in my head.
Yeah.
And because I believe when we're doing traditional testing, we can like miss so many things. Like everybody that walks in my door, my virtual door, they're like salty to some degree, or cross. Somebody used the word cross recently, and I love that word now, that
Yeah.
they're not getting anywhere with the conventional medicine model of treatment. So Reed, what are some things you can miss when you test based on symptoms? Are you currently suffering with Hashimoto's? Have you been told there is nothing you can do? Are you tired of the never-ending fatigue? Are you ready to overcome the debilitating brain fog, anxiety, joint pain? I created a masterclass where we dive into the underlying root causes of Hashimoto's so we can get you on a different pathway. One that leads to not only improving your symptoms, but transforming your health. For now, I'm offering this masterclass for free because I know how it feels to keep searching for answers and coming up empty-handed. If you'd like to gain instant access to this masterclass, comment down below masterclass and I will send you the link. Now, back to today's episode.
Well, the standard lab work, your CBC and chem panels and things, have to be so far out of range to even flag. On the lab, you'll see, oh, this is flagged and that's flagged. Well, what the heck does that mean? And how does it relate to my condition and how I feel? And so typically, depending on how out of range it is, you might even be prescribed something to lower that number or raise that number artificially, which, sometimes that's not a bad thing, but it doesn't really handle the long-term problem, or it doesn't even sniff for the cause.
Mm-hmm.
So, not unlike things being, or a person being told it's all in your head, they could be told the wrong thing. Like it's not really that. Just because those were the numbers. In other words, those numbers are out, but they're not what's causing your pain, your misery, your whatever it might be. Let me give you an example. And this is over 20 years ago. A lady came in the office. She was getting chiropractic, and I was a good myofascial therapist. So I would do some trigger point therapy before their adjustment, sometimes a heat pack or something. So I'm walking this lady back to the treatment room, and I could tell she was sad. I said, "Hey, first name, what's going on?" Oh, it's this extra weight that I'm carrying, Reed. I'm 40 pounds overweight, and it's just really frustrating. And me, I'm the happy guy, always with a great suggestion. And I'm like, well, nope, she didn't want to hear that day. She just wanted to get her story out, and I'm a good listener. So she said, it's just really horrible. I've been on this medication for the hives for 2 years, and it's made me gain 40 pounds, no matter what I eat, no matter how much exercise I do. Matter of fact, I can't even hardly exercise anymore because the weight and things. She said, I just been to it for a checkup the other day, Reed, and the doctor told me when I said how horrible I felt being this much overweight. According to her, that physician said, "Lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives. Take your pick."
Oh my goodness.
And she said, "Well, doctor, that's very depressing." He said, "Well, I'll be happy to write you a prescription for antidepressants if you'd like." And so finally, she's just staring at the ground the whole time, sad. And understood her feelings. But I had to finally say, "Well, first name, why didn't you ever try to find out why you get the hives?" And her head snapped around so hard, I thought she wasn't going to need her chiropractic adjustment. She, what? I mean, I almost could hear the bones cracking. What? I said, "Well, I'm not sure, but maybe, we could find out why you get the hives. And then, that would be a pretty good solution." Anyway, skipping forward to just a couple weeks later, we got her test result. I gave her some labs, got her test results back, changed her diet and some other, remember, DRESS, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. Well, part of the stress was wrong foods and environmental things she was using, household cleaners and personal care products, and just changed all of that. And within 13 days, I remember exactly, she said to me, "Reed, this is amazing. I called my doctor the other day and I said, hey, I'm off that medication because I found out why I get the hives." Like I don't know why they didn't think of it before, but and then another visit later, she said, "Reed, I've been exercising to a sweat and I've been taking hot showers." And I hadn't done that in 2 years because even on the medication, hot showers and sweating gave her the hives. So, man, this changed her life around completely. And it's good for her, obviously. She started losing weight right away. Right away. And then, um, it made me feel like I'd actually accomplished something in the world, which is the whole point of going to work. Was your purpose is to
Yeah.
help people. So what I discovered was that by getting all the right data up front, that's an investment, and I can't help what labs cost. They just cost. I don't make any money on them. I certainly have a fee for my service, but labs are what they are. Let's find out what all the healing opportunities are, and results vary. But when you are working at the causal level and understanding how those causes interact with each other, which you hardly hear anywhere, Tara, is not only are there all these causal factors, they're affecting each other in ways that can't be singly measured.
Yes.
That's coming from a guy who my job now is I teach a course in lab work. I have been teaching a course in lab work since 2008, and I've taught thousands of people. And they're going out using the system of investigation as it applies to the all natural drug-free remedies or self-directed therapies and lifestyle, basically. And they're building these amazing practices because they're actually getting results and opening people's eyes up. Hey, all that data that belongs to you. That will empower you, and we'll use that data to create a customized program to whatever it is. Get off the foods, get on the right foods, more important. And we do some other things around diet. Go to bed on time, and get up and get up early, believe it or not. My dad always said, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise.
I love that. Sounds like my grandfather.
The real saying, and then the exercise goes without saying. The stress reduction is the biggest part of our therapy sometimes because people don't even know how much stress they're under and how it's from the time they wake up till the time they go to bed. And they don't even know what's stressing them out sometimes.
No.
They get into that, and then the nervous system, balancing things out isn't just popping more pills. It's understanding psychospiritual and physical stress and chemical stress, which remember where I started in environmental conservation and law and things. And it was, I mean, I know how bad the environment is. I've seen the damage and just kind of carried that skill and observation mentality into the field of helping people. And it turns out we created something pretty cool.
Well, that's awesome. And I really loved your story with insert first name, because like I actually had a visual of her like whipping her head around and hearing with that. What a
What?
foreign concept. Like, wait,
Amazing.
the
Yeah,
root cause? Like, wait, does this matter?
yeah, yeah. My mom got uh, she lives in another state. I'm in California. She was in Ohio, and she'd been to the doctor and been put on thyroid medication. And I said, "Well, what's wrong with your thyroid?" She goes, "I don't know. They just told me
Oh,
my thyroid's low, so I have to have this." And you can only do so much for your mother, right?
yeah.
Because I'm still the little bad boy. She thinks, like what could I know? And but I went to a physician in town where I lived and said, "Hey, what about thyroid? Like, is there a way to treat the cause? How do you figure that out?" He goes, "Oh, you can't. You just take your medication for the rest of your life."
Oh my goodness.
And it,
Oh my.
that kind of upset me a little bit. I'm like, "No, there's something that you guys are missing."
Well, yeah, and don't even get me started with the thyroid. I'm very passionate about that. That's
You
why
would
I
be.
created a whole, well, about Hashimoto's in particular, a whole program for that, since I don't have a thyroid and I was treated so horrifically in so many different ways and ignored, and
Yeah.
again, all in my head. And I don't even have a count, but it's hundreds of individuals that are on medication and they have no idea why. They're like, I don't know. They just put me
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. The statistics are probably 30 million people, my
Yeah.
opinion, and from what I've read and studied stuff, that are on, thyroid support, but no one ever looked at why is their thyroid
Mhm.
underactive. So that became my mission 25 years ago. Well, and not just with thyroid, obviously with the sex hormones and you just
Yes.
name it, the gut problems and all the things, was how can I go back upstream and upstream, go as far as you can. And that's when I came up with that term metabolic chaos. Now, nurses would love this because they see it every day. They're looking
Mhm.
at a person who's been diagnosed with one thing, thyroid, Hashimoto's, or irritable bowel, or chronic fatigue, or you name it. But they know it's not just one thing, and you can't just
Mm-mm.
direct your attention. Oh, because the minute you lay down a diagnosis, that whole world of diagnosis and treatment is a way to ignore everything else that they really need to be working on.
Yes. Yes. I love that you brought that up, because I feel like the diagnosis becomes like a monkey on our back, and that becomes our story. That becomes who we
Yep.
are. Like so many people that come, I'm getting fired up. I'm going to start sweating here in a
Mm,
second. But
good.
because this is something I diagnose people. It's part of being a nurse practitioner, and I don't want to discount it, because it matters. But when somebody comes to me and I'm like, "How are you feeling?" and it's like, "Well, I have this is this." It's like, well, no, how are you feeling? Like, what is your life like you said, how are you sleeping? What are you eating? Like, what are you doing for your for your nervous system? We get these labels and it becomes like who we are. And then we get this medication and we believe it's the only option. It's the only road. Like the diagnosis and the treatment is the end of the story, versus in functional medicine, it's it's the beginning, right?
And
Because we need to find out why that's going on. And you spoke about earlier, you mentioned about the adrenals, and I am very passionate about adrenals. I test a lot of adrenals. I have never
yeah,
seen
but
like I hate normal and I hate perfect, but like normal, like, oh, you get the thumbs up, everything looks great. It's usually like, well, you use the word chaos, so I'll go with that. Like
yeah,
significant dysfunction. Can you talk a little bit more about adrenal stress?
absolutely. So people know adrenals are the stress. glands. They're on top of your kidneys, and they produce cortisol and DHEA and aldosterone and other hormones, things your body uses to regulate function and to counteract stress. They're part of the stress response, if you will. So when you get cut off in traffic or yelled at by a boss, or there's an upset of any kind, which could, by the way, be physical. It could be a chemical assault. You could smell something or put something on your body. Your body doesn't know what, doesn't really care what the stressor is. It will respond in a survival mode. So that includes the fight, flight engagement. So the first thing to happen is your adrenaline goes up. You know, you get caught off in traffic. Oh, adrenaline. And then that signals the adrenals to start producing cortisol, and cortisol is the backup for adrenaline. So now you can handle with that problem. You can fight, flight. You can run away. You can stay in and fight, and that and it cortisol will start eventually to break the body down. It's a catabolic hormone, and it needs to be countered by DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, but DHEA. So we measure those all the time, and we find that people are in a catabolic state. They're cortisol dominant, even if they're not producing a lot anymore. It DHEA goes down under stress, and so you end up in this catabolic state. Well, you're getting older before your time. Your skin's thinning out. Your hair's getting gray. You're drying up all over the place and things like that. It's just you're older before your time, and when you don't even know what the cause is, like you don't realize how much mental emotional stress you're under. You have no purpose in life. The psycho-spiritual. You have aches and pains from something previous, could have been 20 years ago. You're still kind of limping around and whatever. That happens to be my problem, by the way. My main stressor is damage I've done to my body. It's very well used, you might say, and from every kind of extreme sport and motorcycle and stuff. But then there's also the chemical. You're using something on your hair every day, or on your skin, or your household cleaning products are very toxic, and there's other toxins. There's obviously the things in our food. So you have multiple stressors, and it just you wind up in a chronic catabolic state. Now people say chronic, fight flight. You're chronically, and the nervous system's out of balance. You're in the sympathetic mode, like you're just always on edge. The parasympathetic obviously would need to be strengthened, but you're in the sympathetic fight flight, and you don't even know why, because it's it's a bunch of stuff in your life going on. So people need a system, and back to the question, it's the adrenals that help modulate and regulate these things. But if you have adrenal fatigue, that's what they used to call it. We don't call it that anymore. It's HPA axis dysfunction, just a little deeper, a little more scientific than just adrenal fatigue. But you're suffering. You have more aches and pains and tired and fatigue, and again the thinning skin and hair, and low libido, and inability to build muscle. And that's, you go to a physician with that, and he runs a blood test and doesn't find anything wrong with you. Nothing. Your blood work looks normal, and yet that you're under a lot of stress, maybe. And what happens next is worse, because as you're in a catabolic state, there's a way the dominoes fall. The next thing to go, if you're in this catabolic anabolic, is the sex hormones. So again, it's where periods get off, your fertility changes, if you're postmenopausal, lots of things. Everyone, I don't think I have to explain symptoms to this audience, but you got female problems, and men have theirs too, because they're just as subject to these influences. But the next thing to go after the catabolic anabolic, the sex hormones, then the immune system. So you end up with a dysbiosis, you end up with some digestive issues. And I could show you how all the dominoes fall by running the lab work. That's the secret to the hormone, immune, digestion. Detoxification goes next. Then energy production's off, and your nervous system's out of balance. And, there's no one pill to take. There's no one, you have to do a whole lifestyle assessment. diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And so that's how my wife and I live. We try to, with diet, grow our own food. And I can go on and on. I'll keep talking because the teacher
Well,
comes out.
I love how you talked about the catabolic and anabolic, because that really matters, and that somebody might not even realize it, that
Yeah,
our body just recognizes a stressor, and it could be dryer sheets, right? That was one of the things for me, like
yeah,
different like chemical sensitivities,
yeah,
and it's so vitally important that we're thinking about this, because I've worked with hundreds of individuals, and many of them have told me I'm not under any stress. And
yeah,
then, I was a test first practitioner in the beginning. Now I'm more lifestyle first,
sure.
nutrition, movement, and like get a foundation. I'm more so to try to shift the perspective from just looking for a result to like, hey, you're actually going to have to change something. Like you're going to have to do something different, because like, I tell people, I'm always waving this and I'm like, this is not a magic wand, right? Like
Sure.
I don't have magic with whatever I recommend or write an order or order a test, give a supplement, that we have to actually do something different. That being said, some individuals really need data. And so I am not a hardcore one way or the other. I'm going more for that individual, because frankly, that was me. I
Yes.
was like, I'm not under stress. I get it done. I'm like very effective. I'm motivated. I'll sleep when I'm dead. So when I did a lot of tests on myself, it like opened my eyes. It was frankly terrifying, because like my adrenal dysfunction was so far advanced that I was like flatlined with my
Yeah.
cortisol and my DHEA like halfway through the day. And for the
Yeah.
listener, I'm talking about like looking at like cortisol testing, like salivary testing, which is what I like to test.
Yes.
And and no wonder I had immune system issues like you brought up, and developed chronic diseases, because
Yes.
it all matters. And so I think it's really important for the listener, not for fear, but for empowerment. And Reed, it sounds like that's really important to you, even going back to the story you talked about with First Name and the hives, like
Yeah.
the individual really matters, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole trick, is people are suffering and you want to help, and you got to meet them where they're at, which is what I liked about your approach, because you're meeting people with that. So you obviously have developed a lot of trust with people, and you have a reputation, and they're going to listen. And otherwise, you can't help them,
No.
And when it comes to the labs, that's more of an investment that
Mhm.
they need to be willing to take. Now, at first, I worked in a doctor's office, so pretty much the doctor would say, "Well, you need to talk to Reed about that," and I'd go in there, so that authority was behind me. I
That's
said, "Well, we're
awesome,
going
by the way,
to,"
that you
and
had that support. Mhm.
oh yeah, yeah. I was the alter ego because as physicians, they couldn't do what I could do.
No.
Like just, because I wasn't billing insurance, it was all cash. So people were willing to invest. And I found that people will invest when they are, sort of suffering. The problem is, I mean, the idea is you want them to invest in the data because they'd spent a lot of money. It wasn't for lack of spending money. These people were still suffering. If you've been to 6, 8, 10 practitioners and aren't better yet, well, that sucks. But you also spent a lot of money, and I
Mhm.
can't help that. I would say, well, maybe I can help you. I had another case. A lady was coming in, and she was doing very well. She was loving our program. She was getting a combination of chiropractic, nutrition, and my lab work and things like that. And she said on the way out one day, Reed, do you work with kids? And I said, well, I raised 4 and I football coached for 15 years. I worked with a lot of kids. Why? And she said, this was really disturbing at the time. This is over 20 years ago. She said, well, the school wants to send my son home if I don't put him on Ritalin.
Oh, wow.
That was the drug of choice back then for
Mhm.
ADD and ADHD. I said, well, do you think your son has a Ritalin deficiency? And so you laugh. Let me tell you what, she didn't laugh.
Oh,
She was pissed, like, I don't want to put my son on drugs. Like, that's not funny. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. She goes, can you help or not? I said, I don't know, but we could run some tests and see if there's something affecting his nervous system and all the different things. And she was totally game. And we ran some tests. And within 3 weeks, by the way, I never met the young man. He was only 9. Can you imagine putting a 9-year-old, that Ritalin is a class 2 narcotic?
mm,
That's the same classification as cocaine,
yeah.
class 2, whatever that means. And I said, I don't know if I can help or not. Ran some labs, got the results, went over them with her. Moms are better the mom get the kid than me, and tell them what's required and things like that. Within 3 weeks, Tara, within 3 weeks, I got a call. The principal of the school had tracked me down through the mom and said, Mr. Davis, Billy, call him whatever, is a different kid. He's paying attention. He's getting good grades. He's not poking the other kids. He's not outbursting inappropriately in class and da da da. And here is this all music to my ears. I'm thinking, yeah, I know that already. That's what we do here, and stuff. And he goes, very disappointing. He goes, what'd you put him on?
Oh my goodness.
So he just wanted to know what's the magic in the bottle type of thing. I said, well, we put him on a better diet and bedtime and exercise schedule and study time, and we rearranged this kid in more ways than one. But we got the irritants out of his nervous system, off his nervous system, and that was, I would say, where the lab work comes in. And you can't. There's no substitute for that other than trial and error. You can't just keep. Well, maybe it's his cereal. Maybe it's his. He
Yeah.
doesn't react. You have to test the foods and the environmental pollutants and things, and not in kids that young, but the hormones and the immune system, all the things that we test for. Amazing.
You brought up something. Well, you brought up a lot of important things, but one thing's really standing out to me. And well, several things actually, because I can't believe that doctor said, would you put him on? I actually,
that was the principal of the school. I'm sorry, but that was
that's
the
right.
principal
That's right. The
of the
principal.
school. And oh, by the way, I also asked her at first, well, do they have a nurse at school, or is there a doctor that has diagnosed him with something that they would want to put him on a dangerous drug? She said, no, it's just the teacher and principal. We're diagnosing and then prescribing.
That's illegal, and it's not okay.
It's very disturbing,
Yeah.
a lot of points of view. But yeah, so in the position, it was the principal, and he just
That's right.
recognized the good thing when he saw it.
Well, and I think it just got me so hyped up. I'm like, because I can imagine. No offense to doctors, I can imagine a doctor saying that also. Because I've had doctors actually ask me, what drug, or is it a supplement that you're giving them? How is this individual better? I'm like, well, it's all of the things, the foundations of health. Like you said, thinking about the nervous system, it's like study time, laying down a foundation for nutrition. And one of the things that really resonated, because you said, could we get there without the labs? Are we throwing what I call a dart in the dark? And I do believe, because I order functional tests all the time. Again, I usually start more foundation, because we need that foundation instead of just looking for the test is going to give me the supplement. Because I think that's a lot of the thought process. Like, I'll do this test and you'll tell me what herb to use or then what drug to use. and a dose of something and it's going to cure me. I'm like, well, we can't overlook the most important parts, which is what you're putting into your body, what you're putting on your body, how you think, how you sleep, how you move your body. All of these things are so important. But when somebody has really made like dramatic changes, I do like digging deeper because, and I give people the option. Like we can start, like you said, you can, remove this or remove that or trial and error. That I don't think that's the best approach. I do think it needs to be really personalized. And for me, that's where labs really come in. And you brought up food. So I'd love for you to speak a little bit about our food sensitivities. I'm not just talking about allergies, which of course conventional medicine, if the allergy test is normal, you don't have an issue. So are food sensitivities real? I had to interrupt today's video to let you know I have a new ebook, The Ultimate Gluten-Free Guide. This ebook is completely free, packed with so many tips, tricks, and recipes. Link is in the show notes. Check it out. Make sure to grab a copy for yourself. Now, back to today's video.
Absolutely, they're real. And to a point, I first wanted to say you raised a really important issue when you talked about the lab work and just like selling supplements or something like that. That's not how we work. And I have interviewed over 2,000 of my graduates because we call it a post-grad interview. It's actually their true graduation. Now I don't do them all anymore because we have so many. But I interviewed a lady this morning who had a master's degree and other nutritional certificates, including from IFM and these things. And she was, bestowing all the accolades. What an amazing course! What a great teacher I am, and all these different things. But she said what she loved most about the course was how well we taught clinical correlation, so that we're never just treating the paper. You don't run a test and go, oh, this is high, let's bring it down, or this is low, let's bring it up. It's what caused that test result to be where it is. Like you lived yourself into these problems and you can live yourself out of them. And we use the test to kind of track at least the physiological response. And so it's really important never to treat the paper, always treat the person. So where you start with their lifestyle and some coaching on that aspect first, that's wonderful. We also include really good interview and intake forms and medical history and all these different things. So it's never just treat the test results. That's super important. So I'm glad you reminded me to talk about, and we simply call it clinical correlation. And you show some of their test results and it's like hormones are off, digestion's off, detoxification's off. There's all these healing opportunities. And our clients say, well, you're the first person ever told me why I feel so crappy, rather than just this is off and here's your medication. Like that's clinical correlation. Yes, the test results explain why you feel so bad when no one else figured it out sometimes. And so I wanted to make sure we covered the clinical correlation aspect. It's not just the labs, it's how well they explain why you feel the way you do. And then on the other note that your question actually, I'll just give you an example. Sensitivities versus allergies. Sensitivities are more insidious because if you have an allergy. Like me, if I get around a cat, cats make my eyes water. That's an IgE mediated allergy. And I sneeze and like that's immediate. If you had an allergy to tomatoes and you ate them, maybe even just hold it and sniff it or so, you'd have a reaction. Could be the hives, could be all kinds of different reactions. But sensitivities are slow. They often take days, like up to 72 hours, we say, to get any kind of reaction at all. Well, you can't really tie in that today you have, irritable bowel symptoms or diarrhea, constant, whatever it is, depressed. It could be all kinds of things. You don't relate it to something you ate 3 days ago. They're just that brain doesn't correlate. And if you eat it every day, you never will figure it out. So the testing is important. but let me tell you how obvious this is. I had one of our patients coming in was she was a principal of 5 different charter schools. So these are private schools. I live in San Diego, and it's kind of a big thing here, charter schools. And she went to one each day of the week. So she started sitting in on the parent-teacher-kid disciplinary meetings. So parent-teacher meeting, well, what's that for? Well, your kid's doing something. And she would sit in, and the only question she started to ask was look at the child, whatever age, and say, what do you have for breakfast? So let me ask you, what percentage of the quote unquote bad kids, like me, I guess, what percentage do you think had crappy cereal for breakfast, like Pop-Tarts or Cocoa Puffs or something? What percentage do you think had a shit breakfast?
Very, very, very high percentage.
100%. 100% were eating garbage for breakfast, and then you wonder why your kid's nervous system's off and he's not paying attention. He's paying attention, maybe if the teacher's really good and cares about what they're teaching.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's looking at the gardeners out on the front lawn, because they're more interesting. And his nervous system is what needs to be relaxed and soothed, and because it's otherwise excited by food coloring and sugar and
those
all the
horrible chemicals.
Yeah, the pesticides and herbicides, and you name it. Yeah, so there's reasons for everything. We always say that the lab results, just like the symptoms, are not the problem. They're the result of the problem. You got these lab results honestly. Yeah, they aren't the problem. They're the result of the problem. So let's figure that out. They lead you to it, but the lab results, you got to have them in our world. But they just will lead you to the source, the cause.
Well, and I love that you look at correlation, because it's like sticking in my mind, because with me going to IFM, that was really important. Well, frankly, when I first started, I just wanted, like, here's my lab result, all of my immune systems trashed. I have all of these diseases, all these immune reactions to everything. Like, I was in the red on every test, almost every test, and multiple different things. My entire body was reacting. And I'm like, what supplement do I take? What do I do? What do I do? And like, they're not teaching like everybody gets the same, because I need to be factored in what I'm doing or not doing. So I really do love that. And for practitioners out there, or those that are looking for more education, I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but everything is going to be linked below to go check out what Reed is doing, because there are a lot of programs out there that are not doing that are literally supplement protocols. Like, they just teach a protocol. Like, you have of course it's not accurate, but adrenal fatigue, here's your protocol. And it's all like, because people want a quick fix. Who doesn't, right? I do. If there's something going on, yesterday I want the answer. But if we're looking to actually change our trajectory, change cellular physiology, improve like our health, it's going to take more. I mean, I do believe supplements can be a part of the picture strategically. It's very strategic. And Reed, like in terms of food, right? Because I'm hearing you say that food is really important, and that what's impacting Jimmy may not be impacting Nancy. I mean, why doesn't one diet work for everyone?
Well, the simple answer is everyone's different, and we call it metabolic typing. So there are ways that your body processes food that are different depending on background, heritage. Genetics are pretty important. So there's been a common thing in the last 10, 15 years, ancestral dieting. Well, that's great if you know who your ancestors were. And if you haven't intermarried and don't have a lot of different ancestry, traits and characteristics and genetics, you get half your genes from your mom and half from your dad, and you can't pick your parents. That's the one thing. Can't pick who they were. And so you've inherited from your great, 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 great grandparents, so to speak, um, dietary requirements. They're not um, really choices. If you don't understand what those are, then you will pay the piper. You can eat wrong. And I have so many examples. I mean, just 25 years of experience with case after case of people eating differently than their genetic metabolic type. And so they are all suffering. And the big example would be, diabetes and obesity, how prevalent they are. We're just not eating. We're eating crap, and it's nowhere even near what our ancestral diet is or should be. Um, and so, but I found a way to simplify it. People could go to mtdiet.com. It's an easy thing to go check out. By the way, earlier I wanted to say for contaminants and uh, lotions and potions and all the stuff and you use in your house, go to Environmental Working Group or ewg.org.
It's already listed below. I'm a fan.
Okay. But mtdiet.com will help you sort out the important factors. Like one thing is oxidative rate. That's inherited. You can't change it. You're a protein type, a carb type, or mixed. And everyone who's a protein type isn't the same. To answer your question, you can be a real fast oxidizer or sort of fast oxidizer. So the amount of protein you eat needs to be dialed in, like the old-fashioned radio dials. I don't know if you remember in cars, you had to turn the knob until it sounded good. And then what do you do when it sounds good? Oh, that sounds really good. You go past it on purpose so that you can come back to the exact, we call it radio, dialing in the amount of protein and fat versus carbs can be dialed in exactly like that. And you're going to match what's your inborn, what's called oxidative rate. You burn fuel and you can't change it. So if you're a fast oxidizer, you want to eat slow burning fuel. If you're a fast oxidizer, imagine you're a bonfire and throwing paper on it. That would be carb. You just eat carb. You're just throwing paper and it's burning up, and you don't get any energy. You feel like crap. You're you're not satiated. It doesn't satisfy you. So you just keep eating more of the same junk. And because you're not satisfying your oxidative rate, you're not eating enough protein and fat. And it's the same for the slow oxidizers. If they eat too much protein and fat, they get just as sick as someone doing the opposite. Just think of Eskimos. If you gave them all salad, how would they all do on just watermelon for breakfast and really good kale, nice crispy kale salad with whatever the hell you want to put on it. And they would all get diabetes and pretty much die. Like they'd have no energy, no satiation. They would just eat all the time going, oh, there's something wrong with me. So anyway, when you give them the right diet, they have they're satisfied immediately by their meal for at least 2 or 3 hours, and they need to refuel. But and you get a sense of well-being. You're kind of happier when you're well fed, and your energy will go on to the next meal, of course. So all that's been done for you. You don't have to figure any of that out. Go to mtdiet.com and you'll sort out whether you're a fast oxidizer, slow oxidizer, somewhere in between. And then you get these diet check record sheets that they have you look at what do you have for breakfast, and you look at the percentages. And it's not weighing grams, or it's just looking at it on the plate. You can look at a plate. If it's got a steak and some potatoes on there, it's too starchy. You got steak, and that's got the protein and fat. Oh, but those starches are killing me, So try green veggies instead, and then play with the percentages, and you'll find out the perfect diet for you. And the micronutrients come in later, the vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, micronutrients, trace elements, and phytonutrients, and all that comes in too. But and that's genetically programmed. But the protein fat carb ratios are a great place to start for everybody. And you can dial it in to where you got the energy, sense of well-being, satiation.
I think that's really
and things.
important.
It's
Yeah.
like eat right or don't eat, you know, like it's because you will do damage.
Well, and if somebody, you said like if somebody's like eating, they're constantly eating, but they never like they're crashing. That was me. But I've said it before, you know, I was eating garbage essentially. Pop
It is
Tarts,
hard.
Doritos. I was Dorito girl for years and eating like 6 to 10 times a day and never full, never
Yeah,
satisfied, always
right.
hungry and hangry and moody and headaches and rashes and hives and, you know, lots of
Sure.
medications and steroids that people wanted to
Yeah,
put me on,
yeah,
right? Without really looking at like what is unique and different about me. I'm also like a genetics, I call myself a genetics nerd. I do a lot of genetic testing, which, you know, I think is very different. I don't think a lot of people do. I do a lot of it because it's eye-opening. And like you said, we get one from dad, one from mom. We can't change that. But seeing like my own genetic profile, it made everything make so much more sense. Like having these, you know, incriminating metabolic genes, like in particular, that could lead to type 2 diabetes and obesity, and seeing that my weight was like creeping up. I gained 75 pounds pretty quick. But
wow,
this was years ago. I was eating trash. I was eating garbage and I was so stressed out because it's not just what we're eating, but how we're eating and our mental state, our emotional state, how we're sleeping. Like there's so many factors, but absolutely like that's one of my favorite things is to really like fine tune that individual. Like even when it comes to like workouts, like
oh
I
yeah,
look at genetics and look at, wow, you know, like I told somebody, I think it was yesterday, you have the genetics of an elite athlete.
hmm.
And she's like, I'm not expressing that. I'm like, but the building blocks are there. So now we need to like, which ones do we want to like the dimmer switch turn up and which ones do we want to turn down? And we have that kind of capability to really dial it in. I love that you're like, I'm going to just say spreading that, like spreading that information that we
Yeah,
don't have to just accept our diagnosis and just take medication for the rest of our life.
right. Yeah, absolutely. So you raised the key element of the difference between genetics, which is the programming, and epigenetics, which is the running of the program, if you will. You know, so um, only depending on who you listen to, but I don't think anyone attributes one's health to genetics more than about 8%.
Mhm.
8% of your health is going to be based on genetics. The other, what, 92% is epigenetics, the expression, living, where you live, how you live. Again, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation is good. And I could do a whole show just on supplements. I know a lot about them. And, but this idea of, you know, you lived yourself into your problem and you can live yourself out of your problems, whatever they are, is it's all about epigenetics. Just all the influences, all the signaling that your cells and genes are getting is really, really important. And there's no perfect world out there. You're gonna have stressors, and so we want to. People unfortunately come to us when it's not too late, but they're well on their way to
Mhm.
where the downward spiral has
Yes.
continued for so long that there's a lot to consider and it could take a while. The body wants to heal. Every cell in
Mhm.
your body knows what its job is. You don't have to teach any cells what to do. They know what to do, right? Same way that the moon knows how to circle the earth. That's intelligence is in all of us, in every cell. And so we want to support that, you know, and just coach that up, if we will, you know, while we coach down the contributors to that metabolic chaos. Coach up function, coach down metabolic chaos,
Mhm.
and see what your genetics now see how they what they produce. And you know, we're designed pretty well, I would say. And you know, and health is our natural heritage. There's people with inborn errors, and there's
Mhm.
messed up stuff, but as long as there's time to heal, that's all we
Yes.
need. And by the way, I just add this in the discussion. Well, how do you know when to go to a doctor if what we're saying is true? If it's all up to epigenetics and my lifestyles, well, what about going to doctors? Yeah, there's times to go to a doctor. And here's the distinguishing element. It's when the downward spiral, like, so you get all this metabolic chaos, you're in a downward spiral. You're older, you've been all this experience, all of this, all these signals have been affecting you your whole life sometimes, and it can get so we're in a downward spiral. Remember, I said that the dominoes will fall, and I've tracked and have a system of testing each step along the way in this downward spiral. So if that downward spiral is really contracted, that's when you go see a doctor. So if you get off a plane from West Africa and your temperature is 105 and you're bleeding from your eyeballs, you're not going to call your nutritionist or FDN practitioner. That's when, again, the downward spiral now is really contracted. So you go see a physician, and they're experts. They're the best at stopping the downward spiral. They can intervention, intervening, heroic medicine, acute care, and all these things. That's what they're great at. They can throw you on a test, some machine, sort out this and that. Oh, you got a tumor, your head's about to explode. You're not going to be calling your nutritionist when the downward spiral is there. So in a protracted downward spiral, which is what all your customers and all my customers are living, they're living through that protracted downward spiral, and it's very frustrating. And so that's where there's time to heal. And we can make our observations, because if the downward spiral is really contracted, the observations I would make with my testing, hormones and immune system and digestion, doesn't mean a damn thing. I can't capitalize on those observations if you're going to die in the next week. I need time to capitalize on the observations we make. And so that's why I never put modern medicine down in any way. There's a time and a place where that's the wall you want to have your ladder on, but if you're putting your ladder on that medical wall and it's not a real medical problem, you're screwed unless you get your ladder on the right wall, which is the DRESS, diet and rest and exercise and stress reduction and supplementation. You can capitalize on all those things, individually tailored.
Well, and like I always say, if I have a heart attack, take me to the hospital. Don't take me to a functional medicine practitioner, somebody like me or a nutritionist that, that the time for that is not right now, it's later. But most individuals are battling some type of chronic illness. If it's not a diagnosed chronic illness, it's at least they have symptoms, lots of mystery symptoms. They're getting lots of, I don't want to necessarily say useless, but they're usually normal, right? And you have to be pretty off. And like I always say, if your lab work is really off, you're probably in the hospital. Like by the time it gets so far off, because we're looking at things like that are really like red flags for just basic testing. Like the difference, like for me, I was actually explaining this to a patient the other day, like looking more at like an adrenal picture. And she asked, should I send her to an endocrinologist? And I said, for what? And she said, well, if it's all off. I'm like, well, they're not. You have to have a disease, Cushing's, Addison, to do anything. What we're looking at, or at least what I'm not going to speak for you. What I'm looking at are the things that are modifiable, the things where there's those switches where we can toggle them up or down depending on that individual, their symptoms, their goals. Like, what do they want? And some people are not ready, right? So I always ask, do you believe you can heal? Because if somebody says no, they're not the right fit for me. Because if somebody doesn't believe that, they won't. The body, like the mind, the brain, our heart, our soul, like and I use this example, I say it all the time, so I feel like people are going to be like, there she goes again. If I say I'm so depressed, like it feels wrong to be
Yes.
smiling and saying that, because my
Right.
brain wants things to be, wants alignment. So we don't have to feel well or healed in order to believe we can, but or
Yep.
do we believe somebody else can fix us, give us a magical pill, a magical potion, and then we're good? Like that is not the individual that should come see me. They should stay in conventional medicine and just get it covered under insurance and just take the Ritalin, right? Like you were talking about before, or take the medication for hives and gain weight. Like
Yeah.
if somebody really wants it to be different, they have to believe it and they have to want to know why. And I'm hearing you say, like, I believe this is how we started our whole conversation, that the reason why this is happening to the body is like vitally important for that person going from this destructive pathway to a, more, I say optimal, like a healthier pathway, right?
Yes. Yeah. You raised a lot of things there for me. One of them was that over 20 years ago, someone said to me, "Hey, you really believe all this stuff that you're doing now, right?" And I said, "You know what? It's not a belief system for me. Like Santa Claus is a belief system. You believe in Santa Claus. This is just really logical and practical science and understanding of anatomy, physiology. But so no, I don't just believe in it. But having said, this is not a belief system. This is step by step process of assessing, with the latest and greatest, the best scientific evidence gathering systems that we could put together. But at the same time, belief can be helpful because we all know about the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that giving sugar pills makes people feel better because they believe that they're getting some kind of treatment for some mystery disease. Um, but there's also the nocebo effect. You've heard of that one, right? Like
Yes.
believing there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I could do. I've been diagnosed. I've got fibromyalgia. That was so big when I started in 1999. Fibromyalgia was like rampant. Now I don't hear about it so much. It's like there's the next SIBO and then all the next sort of fad things going on. But man, once these people had that that fibromyalgia, my fibro, they really identify with it. I call it the nocebo effect versus placebo. So that was worth, I think, mentioning because how the way you perceive the world does matter. That like I get asked a lot, what's your one secret? I go, you know what? Great attitude, like can do, ready, willing, able. I was a Boy Scout. I kind of got brought up that way, like you just, you look at your world is a cup half full, not half empty. And that's something I coach people up on a lot. I'm sure, I know you do too. You haven't said it, but that's kind of where you're starting with point of view, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. And coaching, like listeners might be thinking, like, why do they keep talking about coaching? Like, what is that? Like, is it a sports team or anything like that? It's so important that we have like a mentor or a team, like individuals that understand and also understand how to coach. Because it isn't me saying, now, Francis, go do this. You need to do this for your health. Here's your
Yeah,
diagnosis. Go take that
yeah,
pill or oh my goodness. Or just saying like somebody has like prediabetes. And
yeah,
in conventional medicine, the dot phrase, like in computer systems, is diet and exercise. Not
yeah,
asking, like, like having a conversation, like, let me bring you back in. I want to talk about like, what are you currently eating? How are you moving your body? It's like chart message, diet, and exercise. And And I mean, that was my nurse practitioner training. You know, again, I'm not
Yeah,
throwing
wow.
shade to nurse practitioners. I am one. I love nurse practitioners, but there's not a foundation for thinking about why it's happening, like the root cause approach. And there's no time. There's literally no time been built into that system with 7, 10, maybe if you're lucky, 15 minutes with a practitioner. Like I was
Yeah.
over there when I first became a nurse practitioner, on my like script pad, I was writing eat cruciferous vegetables.
Yeah.
I literally had everybody in the office was like, are you prescribing cruciferous vegetables? Like, yes, they have significant detoxification issues. They're eating garbage. I mean, that for me, I didn't eat vegetables growing up. I ate corn and it was out of a can. I mean, I grew up in New York. We didn't have a farm or anything like that, but I ate Pop-Tarts, bread, drank a bunch of soda with a bunch of
Mm.
sugar in it, and didn't really eat vegetables, like really eat them until I was, I mean, whatever. I'll throw myself under the bus and come for me in the comments until I was about like 18 or 19. So
Yeah.
my
Geez.
body was so like dysfunctional. Like I was super hyper. I literally used to say, I can't calm down. And my family used to say that. They said I had ants in my pants. And I would go from 0 to like 100 in a second. And I would like get so upset. I would just like cry and I couldn't control myself. They would say, oh, Tara's so emotional.
Hmm.
At least this was, I'm turning 50 this year. So I don't believe there was any Ritalin back then. I definitely would have been put on it
Yeah.
without a doubt. Like I would have had that diagnosis, and who knows where I would be today with that being
Yeah.
on
Who knows?
drugs. Like and and
Well,
and for the listener, don't stop any of your medications because of anything Reed and I are talking about. If anything, it could be a great like conversation starter for who you're working with, like for what your goals are. But yeah, so when you were, I had to tell that story because I think about where I went years later. So it didn't hit me really. It was like a moody. I had hives. I had period issues, but it was like that's normal, right? Isn't that everybody
it's
feels
all, yeah.
bad, right? It was years later when like significant health issues started, and I didn't really understand. But looking at the pieces of the puzzle from all the testing that I did, and really figuring out my own story and having to like open my eyes to it changed my life. It
Yeah.
changed my life, and it changed how I help others now because I can't function in that realm anymore because it doesn't like you said, and this really like it struck me, like you felt like what you were doing really made a difference with the woman with the hives, that it was
Oh, yeah.
important. Like that, I know how good that feels when you're like helping somebody to get on a better pathway than just trying to manage symptoms. And
No
you've
kidding.
been doing this. I mean, you don't look it, but you've been doing this for a long time. Like the difference you've made in so many individuals and practitioners' lives over the years.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. One thing I noticed, you maybe that was when you were hyper like that. And first of all, most of those people are pretty intelligent. For some reason there seems to be a correlation between being highly intelligent and being fidgety. And I was fidgety, but back then we just called it being a boy. There was no such thing as ADD when I was a kid. I was born in 1953. So there was boys and there was girls, and they were better behaved than the boys. And there was a few fidgety girls, but not as many as the boys. And since you're one of them, you know that it crosses all boundaries. This idea of things in the environment that would affect your nervous system, that could put you into that state, make you a little more sympathetic. You're sympathetic dominant, and that's fight flight. So you're always ready, to engage. And ants in your pants and things. So yeah, you might have been called tomboy or even like
I was actually.
yeah. See, so that's kind of what happens. Girls are supposed to be, just sit there and play with your dolls or whatever. I never understood that concept, but we were always outside. Uh, yeah, I grew up in Canada, so we were chopping wood and sawing logs and going fishing and hunting and cutting the lawn and cutting the neighbor's lawn. We were raking leaves and building snow forts and stuff all the time. We watched TV and stuff. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson. He's another Canadian intellectual who did a thing on boys and study. That kids, boys especially, and some girls, need to exercise to exhaustion every day. Every day, exercise to it's kind of what we did. You be home at dark and you're out there doing all that stuff and working it out. And then our in my era, I think home cooking was a little more, still the norm and stuff like that. My mom she's 94. She's still living. She's still the best cook on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. At 94 and stuff. So it's a different world, different lives. I'm happy to get to know some of yours, and Tara, I hope we can continue to work together somehow, get to know each other. I'd love to do any other sessions you might have. Like I could do a whole session just on supplements.
I would
What are
love
they
that.
for? Why do that? Or any other topic, hormones. You want to talk about the gut? You've been told all disease begins in the gut. Well, no, it doesn't, but it certainly circles around to it a lot, doesn't it? So that it's so prevalent, so common. We should never confuse common with normal. Symptoms are
Yes.
common, but there's no such thing as I had a lady friend one time, and she said she went to the doctor because she was having problems with her cycle, and that would involve pain around certain times of the month. And
Yes.
she was only 42 at the time, and she said that the doctor told her, take these pills, and if it doesn't go away, we'll have to do a hysterectomy. But don't worry, that's totally normal. Well, if the pills don't work, we'll do a hysterectomy. But don't worry, that's perfectly normal. And I just thought, what a crock of crap. There's no such thing as a normal symptom, let alone hysterectomies.
Yeah. I want to keep my body parts. Already lost one.
You
I
don't get
don't.
extras. Yeah.
I don't want to lose any others. Reed, this
Yeah.
has been an absolutely
Okay.
fabulous conversation. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you feel the listener really needs to know?
Yeah, we'd be on here for another 6 hours easily, but I mentioned, I always like to mention that point of view and having a spiritual place to go to when you're troubled. It's not all in our hands. We're mere mortals, and we can only control so much. But it doesn't mean you can't control a lot. But I'm not a fatalist per se. I'm just saying that having a refuge, like I'm not agnostic, I believe, and have a higher place to give it over to, and that's really important for my sanity and sleep. And stuff. So I'm stabilized by that. We didn't go there and talk about it, but it's a pretty big part of my ability to get stuff done. Is that I have a purpose, and I'm very clear on what it is, and I can get up each day and say my purpose is to help as many people as possible get well and stay well naturally, drug free, and I've taught thousands of practitioners that we're kind of all on that mission of helping people get well and stay well.
Well,
So that's cool.
I love that you said purpose. Like I have goosebumps for that because we can get lost feeling like we have we're like it's normalized. Our symptoms are normalized. Like the women with don't even get me started with the hysterectomy. We'll just fix it by removing a body part. That's not normal. And So our symptoms are normalized, and then we're like stuck like in like tunnel vision that we lose track of our focus, like our purpose. So for me, it is vitally important for the individuals that I work with. That's where I start.
Yeah,
Like
good for you. That's it.
I ask somebody, first before I even will take them on, like, do you believe you can heal?
Yeah.
Not that you're healed already, or you wouldn't be seeing me, but I start with that vision, that
Sure.
vision and purpose, because if we don't know it, like it has to be that powerful. Like I love you said you get up every day and you know what your purpose is.
Oh yeah.
Like, that is powerful. That's a powerful message that you're
Oh,
sending to your body. Like I remember waking up and I didn't even get out of bed yet, and I was crying and thinking, I'm going to die. Like my body's attacking itself. There's no
yeah.
hope for me. And I lived in that state for too long, and it was terrifying. And did I do some miraculous thing? Well, I changed a whole lot of garbage food that I was eating and all of the things that we were talking about. And then my body changed. But this was the most important part, and
Yeah.
why I stayed sick for so long, because I didn't believe it. I believed that I was broken. And like I am on a mission. It is my passion in life, like my purpose, to like educate others that we are never broken. There's a reason. There's a reason. Like you said, like you find the reason and you do something about it, the problem goes away. So
Yeah. What a miracle.
Reed, I loved this. What is the best way for the listener or the viewer to get in touch with you?
Yeah, fantastic. So we have a website and URL set up just for you, Tara. It's fdntraining.com/functional nurse.
Okay.
FDN, like functional diagnostic nutrition, fdntraining.com/functional nurse. And we would love to see some of our today's listeners go there, and we'll give them something cool for free, and something to help you along your path, and learning opportunities, perhaps, whatever it might be. I have a manual that I give away called Dress for Health Success, the DRESS, Diet Rest Success. So it's about the lifestyle, and then it goes into the labs a little bit. But so that's a free book. I think that's what's there now, or it might be a course on hormones or something. They keep changing it on me. I don't do the marketing for the company. I just teach and talk.
I love that, and I'm going to link all of that below, and I'll make sure it's on the screen also.
Okay.
And everybody go and check this out. And you're giving away like awesome information, and I know that the listeners and the viewers, they want to improve their health, right?
Yes.
I think most people do, but we don't know how. So I believe the secret is finding somebody that you resonate with and following that person, like embarking on that journey with that person, whoever that is.
Yeah, that's
right?
it. That's it. That's perfect. We call it walking the talk. And so everyone that takes my FDN course, a course in functional lab work, as it applies to all the protocols, all natural, drug-free, is something you experience when you take the course. Every one of my students runs all the labs on themselves, and I pay for it, part of the tuition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really an experience, and so far beyond just information sharing. It's just the most practical thing I could think of.
Well, that's
So thank
awesome.
you for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on today, Reed.